Today I released a budget primer, an effort to explain to Albertans how the government's budget actually works and the sorts of choices the government has to make. Frankly, given the news that we've been hearing over the last few weeks, the government of Alberta is in serious trouble. And the reason it gets itself into trouble so often is because of its heavy reliance on energy-related royalty income. This energy income is not reliable, but the government persists in becoming very dependent on what is very unreliable. Because of that, whenever the government's royalty income rises, it increases its spending because it feels for some reason that this will be permanent. History has shown, however, that this is never permanent. So how should governments budget? Actually, it's fairly simple. They should budget in the same way that we budget. And how do we budget? We pay our bills. If we can't pay our bills, we have to run down our savings or borrow money. Government has to do the same thing. What else do we do? When our income is very high, unusually high, we don't depend on that. We don't start basing our spending on that high income. Instead, we say to ourselves, that's not reliable. And so I'm going to depend on a steady level of income, what I can depend on to pay for my groceries and determine how big of a house I can buy. Unfortunately, the government of Alberta has not done that. They have tended to assume that high incomes will be forever. And they've based their spending on that high income only to be left high and dry when it proves to be temporary. And it's really unfortunate because this is what gets them into trouble time and time again. In my budget primer, I want to arm citizens with information that will come to them by the government answering three simple questions. First, how reliant is the government going to allow itself to be on energy royalty income? Are they going to rely on unstable energy royalty income to fund health and education and social assistance? If they do, if they say yes they are, then we have to be ready when those energy prices fall to see some serious cuts in health, education, and social assistance. It's inevitable. Second question, how do you feel about deficits? A tolerance for deficit, as long as you're careful with it, allows you to have lower tax rates than otherwise and higher levels of government spending. Again, it's yin and yang. If you would like to have no deficits, you might see that as good news. The bad news is that tax rates will have to be higher and government spending will have to be lower. Third question, how do you feel about infrastructure? The government recently has talked about how they would like to borrow to fund infrastructure. This is fine. And the logic of this is that future generations are going to benefit from new hospitals, new roads, new airports, and therefore they should be sharing in the cost of those things. How do we do that? We borrow to pay for those things now and have future generations pay for it. So it makes good sense, and economists recognize that. However, they have to put a limit on this. And they have to define very carefully what they mean by infrastructure. You can't get carried away on these things. And you have to announce ahead of time how much borrowing would you do at maximum to pay for infrastructure. The government has never announced this. In 1999, the government asked future taxpayers to pay for 8% of their spending. In 2012, we're now asking them to pay 33%. That's a lot. This is not just an academic exercise. This is really important. I'm hoping that Albertans will take the time to download my paper from the School of Public Policy website, give it a read, and think about it. It's important that they do so because it's time that the citizens of Alberta take control. And so we need to ask them, are they behaving in ways that we would behave? Are they behaving in ways that make sense? Those questions need to be asked, and most importantly, they need to be answered. Only with those answers will we as citizens be equipped to decide which government, which political party, because I'd like all parties to be asked these questions, which one of them best represents our interests. I'm Ron Kneebone. This is the School of Public Policy. Thanks for watching.